As we head to round number 7 of the Formula 1 season for the Vietnam Grand Prix, some shocking news has come out of the paddock heading down at the Ford garage. Ford have confirmed that police are investigating the Ford team factory for a potential break-in of their main factory. Ford have claimed that multiple files have gone missing, some files have been photocopied, and multiple doors have been left unlocked in some private and confidential rooms within their factory. This is a shocking thing that's come completely out of nowhere, and it's something that Ford obviously have to take very, very seriously. Ford team principal Ewan Wright, who obviously, as you remember, did initially lose his role as team principal, but of course he was able to usurp that back after investigations over a completely different story last season have finally faded away. He stated that no more shall be said on the matter and that they will work hard with the police to investigate this break-in. Now, this is something pretty shocking, but what we can tell from the initial investigations is that nothing within the factory was damaged. Everything seems to have been left pretty much unscathed, bar what we have seen with multiple files that have gone missing, things that have been photocopied, and doors that are still unlocked. So, for as far as we know, damages are not something that has actually occurred, which means that this break-in may actually be from someone internally, but we obviously don't know. We need to wait and find out what happens from the investigation with the police and Ford. But this is something extremely serious and something that they do not need heading into a crucial period of the Formula 1 season. Moving on then to the race news, and McLaren were fastest in all 3 sessions as they look to try and dominate the Vietnam Grand Prix, sparking a little bit of concern for the other teams in the paddock. What could be a saving grace though is that there is rain that is set to fall on race day, but when that rain is going to fall is unknown. People are predicting that it will fall during the race. Some are saying it'll be right at the end. Some are saying after the race. We just don't know. So there could be a potential chance that we could see some rain, which will really spice up the race if it does come about. Now for some other drivers then, Sebastian Vettel is unhappy with the rear end of his Mercedes. He says that he just can't quite get the rear end working for him, especially in the last sector where he is losing a lot of time. Audi too are also struggling, but this time theirs is a tyre temperature issue in terms of their warm-ups for their qualifying runs. Around this circuit it seems to be quite difficult to get the tyres up to temperature straight away for your run, with the grip being very low, something that Audi are not too happy with, and it could hamper them in qualifying. And then in terms of Ferrari, both their drivers, Tom and Seitz, are happy with their setups heading into this Grand Prix, which could see a great weekend for both drivers, something that has not quite yet been apparent too often this season. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. It's time for round number 7 of the Formula 1 season. Hey, how's it going, guys? It is Foxydude here, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the F1 journey for you guys today here on the channel. We are here for round number 7 of season number 7. We are here for the Vietnam Grand Prix, and we're going to get ready for qualifying here in the sunlight. Although, as you saw in the race news, there is potential rain forecasted. Whether it'll actually fall during the race, though, obviously we're not too sure yet. Onto our first qualifying lap here, and at some point during the 3rd sector, I actually damaged my front wing. So I had a yellow end plate, so this entire lap was very much compromised. I even smacked it a little bit again, and it really just didn't help us there, and we damaged our front wing just that little bit more. Now, as you can see here, this is the one thing that I found which is really annoying when basically qualifying in general. So I'm on my slow down lap here. Hamilton's going quicker. I slow down to when Hamilton comes in. Ricciardo goes into the back of us then, just drives straight into the back of our car, and I got a 5-place grid penalty for that because Ricciardo was on a fast lap. Hamilton went in front of me. I slowed down because Hamilton then slowed down even more for some reason, and I got a penalty for it. So really stupid. But as you can see then, we're on our final qualifying lap here, and we now are currently in P15. With that grid penalty, we'll be starting last. So we need to make sure that we can have the best possible qualifying session in order to literally limitize the damage that we're going to get from this 5-place grid penalty. So as we go in towards the hairpin now here, we've lost about 2/10 maybe through there compared to my previous runs. We actually got a better run through the hairpin on my first lap, but this final sector is where we're going to be absolutely flying now. We're about a 10th and a half up now, but going through here, this is when we can absolutely nail it, not have any issues with front wing damage, and you can just see the delta absolutely flying up now as we gain all of the time that we initially couldn't get. And as you can see then, we're going around now through the last corner here. We're going to cross the line, and we're going to start on pole position, drop 5, P6. It's race day for the Vietnam Grand Prix and we're here for season number 7, round number 7, race number 97. So if you're thinking of 7s, there are plenty of them. It's a very, very interesting circuit, only the second time in the F1 journey that we have been here with overcast weather conditions, but there is a good possibility that we could be seeing some rain. But as said before, it's a 3.484 mile circuit with plenty of long straights and DRS zones in order to get overtaken done, with a very twisty final sector where you've got to be on your toes unless you're going straight into the wall. As said though, this is the second time we have been to this circuit, so it's very much unknown as to who has got the outright pace. It's the soft, medium and the hard compound tyres for today, but those intermediate compound tyres could well be needed, with the safety car being needed as well. Obviously, with the wet conditions around this street circuit, it is a good possibility. But let's have a look at the grid then and see how everybody lines up on the grid. Well, it's a McLaren front row lockout. It's Daniel Ricciardo, the man on the mission, on pole position ahead of his teammate Reese alongside of him. Lewis Hamilton starts in third ahead of Sam then, who qualifies in P4. Next up, it's an all-Ferrari row with Carlos Sainz ahead of myself, taking that 5th-place grid penalty after actually initial collision with Daniel Ricciardo. Max Verstappen qualifies in 7th ahead of Vettel in 8th place, and the two Audis are next, P9 and P10 for Leclerc and George Russell. Lando Norris qualifies in P11 ahead of Valtteri Bottas in P12 on the grid. Next is Pierre Gasly with Nick De Vries in P14. Next up then in P15 is going to be Sergio Perez ahead of Esteban Ocon. Aston Martin with a good qualifying session actually at 14th and 15th. Ocon pretty much quite disappointing. Hulkenberg 17th for Porsche ahead of Noah James in 18th place. Mason Wood still struggling in his Red Bull down in 19th, with Pascal Wehrlein lining up on the back of the grid. Here we go then, as you can see we're on the grid now to start the Vietnamese Grand Prix, and as you saw there is going to be rain forecasted for this race, and it should hit quite early on. We've got 5 lights and it is lights out, and away we go for the start of the Vietnamese Grand Prix. It's been an awesome start for us, instantly going past Sainz and Sam and Hamilton heading into the first corner. The two McLarens going side by side. Hamilton now tries to have a little bit of a run at us, but we get through him quite easily. Swoop around the outside of the second corner and we're through and up into 3rd place now. Reese and Ricciardo going at it, and the two McLarens up front. Ricciardo holds on firm though, but we're up into 3rd place now after starting from P6. Really, really great start there from us. Now we need to settle ourselves down and get into a routine now in this Grand Prix. As you can see, Reese then trying to hunt Daniel Ricciardo down. I've actually got a little bit of a tap then on the back, I'm not quite sure. But Reese then maintains his 2nd place. Ricciardo leads this Grand Prix, the man that's won the previous 3 races in a row now. This man is on an absolute mission when it comes to race victories at the moment. He's got the most victories so far in season number 7, and he is the championship leader, and he is asserting that with a commanding start ahead of his teammate, who put up a good fight as we go in towards the hairpin now for the first time. Lock up then for one of the McLarens. Hamilton there trying to defend, not trying to defend, actually it was Sainz that was trying to attack Sam and get through past him. I don't think he got the move done though. I think Sam just stayed in front of my teammates. So Sainz looking a little bit racy in these opening stages as we go through the last sector here and trying to work out the best way to get through this last sector versus the AIs. You can see already losing some time as I struggle to try and find a good balance through here, and this last sector is where the AIs are absolutely rapid. But we come towards the end of the start-finish line. You can already see straight away that the two McLarens are blasting clear at the front. We're in 3rd place, and Hamilton lines up right behind us in P4. Taking a look at the start of the Grand Prix then, so as the lights go out here, you can see that we actually get a sensational start. We just launch off the line and we're past everyone straight away here, and we're automatically now trying to have a look into turn 1 here. I actually thought that Reese would have got this move done into turn 1 because he had the outside for turn 2, which should technically be the favourable line, but it doesn't actually work out for him. But for us though, it worked out. We managed to cover off Hamilton there as Ricciardo fends off Reese. Let's have a look at this McLaren battle though, because I'm surprised that Reese wasn't able to actually take the lead of the Vietnam Grand Prix. But as you can see then, the lights go out and Reese has got a better start here. He's actually trying to cover off, I think, Sam in towards the first corner, but in towards turn 1 here, he's got the inside line, so he could have shoved Ricciardo wide here actually. Failing that, he's now got the outside of this turn 2 sweeping corner, but he just sort of allows Ricciardo to come back at him, and then Reese eventually misses out on an opportunity which he should have probably taken the lead of the Vietnamese Grand Prix. But fair play to Ricciardo for holding firm. Now this is on board here with Sam, and you're about to see me absolutely fly past him any second. Now there I am, and we're now up into third place here, blocking off Sam's approach actually into the first corner. This allows Sainz to have a run at him here, and again, Sainz this time has got the inside line. Sam's going to have to go around the outside here, and Sam is going to lose this place here to Carlos Sainz, unfortunately for him. Eventually then he'll get it back in towards the hairpin, which we saw now. On board here with George Russell, who's on the back of Verstappen now, heading in towards the hairpin and on this long back straight here. That BMW power unit, the worst on the grid, and it's unfortunately going to cost Verstappen dear here. He actually fights it in towards the hairpin. It's not quite a clean-cut overtake there, but eventually on the exit, Russell gets the move, and now he's got the Aston Martin in behind him now. So on board with Verstappen here, who's now behind Bottas. Bottas struggling a little bit here. Now we've got De Vries, who fancies a run, not only at Verstappen, but also at Bottas as well here. De Vries will go for it now, as there's also Noah James there trying to attack Verstappen. Max is in a bit of trouble here now. Bottas locks up into the hairpin. Verstappen holds on. Bottas loses a place. De Vries keeps moving up the order. Quite surprising there to see Bottas losing pace. Bottas has been quite competitive this season. Had a brilliant race last time out in Mexico. So I'm surprised that he's struggling that much. But on to lap 5 of the Grand Prix here now. And we're just about keeping tabs on Reese. But unfortunately for me, I'm also not able to pull away from my competitors behind. Sam now here has passed Lewis Hamilton onto this straight now. We don't have DRS, unfortunately, to try and stay with Reese, which is going to be a bit of a problem here. Sam's got the DRS on myself, and as you can see now, he goes towards the inside line. Initially fakes the outside, but switches to the inside line, breaks much later into the hairpin, and Sam takes third place in this Vietnamese Grand Prix. As you can see then, that is Leclerc getting past Carlos Sainz. Of course, Leclerc, the devil's advocate from last time around in Mexico, who caused a big crash into the first corner. But for Sainz, though, it's just getting a little bit bad now for the Ferrari drivers, as I'm falling back in this race. So too is Sainz now. Sainz under pressure here from Lando Norris now in the Jaguar car as they go in towards the hairpin here. So let's see if Sainz can defend this position against Lando Norris, but Norris has got the outside line. He'll be able to get onto the traction just so much better than, unfortunately, what Sainz can do. And there you can see is the job done and dusted for him. Now Charles Leclerc here is continuing his fight-back drive in this Vietnamese Grand Prix. He's going to try and attack Lewis Hamilton now, and he goes towards the outside line here. Hamilton's got DRS, so too does Leclerc, but Leclerc's got a much better power unit in the back of that Audi, and he's up into 5th place now. Next up for him is going to be myself, who I'm still able to keep Sam in this phase of the race, but as you can see now, we've got a yellow flag on track for one of the Renault cars, but crucially, the rain is now falling here in Vietnam, and we're going to have a look though. It is Valtteri Bottas, the man that did so well in the previous Grand Prix, to claim, I think it was P4 he got in that race, unfortunately is out of the Vietnam Grand Prix, and for him it is bad news. But on to lap 10 of this Grand Prix now. The track is getting much slipperier. We are at a point now where we need to change the intermediate compound tyres. Jeff gives us the confirmation we've got to do it, and we are going to do it, so we're going to swap down to the intermediate compound tyres. So for the first time, actually, under these new regulations of these really lightweight cars, we're going to experience what it's like to race in the wet. But here comes Leclerc now, trying to have a look at us into the hairpin. We can cover that one off, but we can't slow the car down. It's getting a little bit late on the brakes then. We managed to hold on in there, but the back end, you can see, really struggling on traction now. Leclerc side by side with us as we go in towards the last sector now, as we brake nice and late down the inside line. Should be a comfortable move, but we've gone too deep again. Track conditions are really poor. Oh, it's so close to the side of Leclerc there. Leclerc holds on though. He's up into 5th place, now 4th place should I say. We've dropped to 5th. Norris now right behind us. We have to stop and get some intermediate compound tyres on, but crucially, some teammates out there are really going to be hampered by this. One of those is going to be my teammate Sainz, who's going to have to either A, stack, or he does stay out for another lap, which is going to be so costly for him in this Grand Prix. Lando Norris too has to go out again for another lap in these conditions, while the rest of us can get on a fresh set of intermediate compound tyres and really work, although George Russell there is actually going to stack behind Leclerc, so Audi are risking a stack rather than just letting Russell go out for another lap, but that pit stop was not good enough, unfortunately, from the Ferrari mechanics, and we've lost a place to Lewis Hamilton now. So Lewis Hamilton has jumped us in the pits then. Sam is also in front of Hamilton, although Sam is actually in front of Hamilton in the first place. Leclerc, though, has actually got in front of Sam in the pit stops then. So Audi have had a fantastic pit stop section there. Jaguar have been too slow, and they've lost out to Leclerc, which is massive for this Grand Prix. Leclerc was flying in this Grand Prix, and now all of a sudden, things have really changed around in this race, and we're on board here with Leclerc a little bit later on into our first run on the intermediate compound tyres. You can see see De Vries here, one of the men that wasn't able to stop straight away for the intermediate compound tires. He's now struggling for performance. Sam here now fancies a run at Nick De Vries and trying to get past him as quick as possible. But Hamilton says absolutely no. He's going to try and take advantage of the fact that Sam was struggling a little bit for performance. Now all of a sudden Hamilton fancies a run at Sam. And this is going to be quite interesting to see who can come out on top. De Vries now boxes for a set of intermediate tires. Sam now goes down the inside of Hamilton goes down the inside of Sam. Sam loses out to Hamilton. We're now trying to sneak up onto the back of Sam and see if we can try and pick up the scratches here, but we bumped the wall very slightly there. Back end slides on exit. Now all of a sudden Gasly is onto the back of us here as we go down the start finish straight, but we'll just have enough time to go through and retain that position in P5. So a little bit nervy stuff going on here, but as you can see, we're now in P6 in this Grand Prix. So it did say P5 for a second, but that's because one of the McLaren cars had pitted. And unfortunately, I think it was Reese actually, that had to stay out another lap. So Reese as well in this Grand Prix, who was chasing his teammate down, has also lost about a little bit of time. Speaking of someone who's trying to regain some time, it's going to be Sam. He breezes past Lewis Hamilton and is back up now into 5th place in this Grand Prix. Oh, 4th place it is in this race. Hamilton drops into 5th. We're now in 6th place, and we're going to try and hunt down Lewis Hamilton and see if we can try and get past him as we go now onto lap 13 of this Grand Prix. You can see that we're accelerating now onto the long straight here. DRS has been disabled now, of course. We won't have the benefit of using the DRS on the back straight, which might just be costly for us in this race. We don't have the greatest straight line speed. Of course, we have had an engine upgrade that came in for the Canadian Grand Prix, which has really helped us out. But of course, we know that we can be a little bit better in a straight line. Hamilton, though, will quite like that because he's not the quickest Mercedes. He's actually got a slightly weaker power unit than what we do. And of course, that's going to help him that he hasn't got DRS to be worried by. But DRS or not, we're able to get through past Lewis Hamilton, and as you can see, we get very close to the wall there on the exit, really just trying to find the limits of all the grip here. As you can see now, we've got George Russell trying to attack Pierre Gasly in the Ford now as they fly down the back straight here in towards the hairpin corner. It's going to be quite a simple overtake, you think, for George Russell, considering he is going to have that inside line, which should help him out, and or the outside line helps him out, swoops around, job done. Gasly dispatched with. Next up for him is going to be Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, and then it'll be ourselves. So I wonder if Russell could get onto the back of us here. Lap 19 of the Grand Prix now. This entire middle stint actually was quite quiet. Nothing really happened for us. We were just sort of, well, racing really. I had a lot more pace than Sam ahead, but as you saw there on that back straight, I really couldn't find anywhere to get near to Sam. I was struggling a lot here. You can see that I've got more pace and I knew that I had it. I mean, I've closed that to the back of Sam, but I just can't utilize any more pace that I've got in the back of this car as the back end slides a bit through this last sector, because crucially for me, I just don't have the performance, the straight line speed to get past Sam. DRS enabled, sure, we'd be absolutely fine, but we don't have that now. But we are going to come in at the end of lap 19 and fit a fresh set of intermediate compound tyres. I was really thinking about trying to take the intermediates to the end of the race, but I just hadn't thought of that. I thought too late to do that, and the tyre wear was too high. And of course, these guys on fresh inters will absolutely reel onto the back of me way too quickly that I just wouldn't be able to do it. So we are pitting now for another set of intermediate compound tyres, but crucially enough, you can see there, that's exactly what we needed. Sam has been held again in the pits now by Jaguar. Of course, he lost out to Leclerc in the opening round of pit stops for the first set of intermediate compound tyres. Now in the second round of pit stops, he's lost out to myself. So Jaguar having an absolute nightmare when it comes to pit stops today. And that is beautiful for us. So we're now into 8th place. Of course, we've still got other drivers to stop. But crucially, we've got clean air. And someone that's not going to have a great time here is Daniel Ricciardo. So the race leader, confirmation that he's actually got some form of mechanical problem. And he's in trouble now. So Leclerc is caught up to the back of Ricciardo. Reese is also caught up, so the fight for the lead is now super close here. We're also just in the back shot here, so it's a four-way fight now for the lead of this Vietnamese Grand Prix. I nearly said that wrong. As Leclerc now opens the taps in the Audi power unit, flies now down the back straight here. It doesn't look like a straight line speed issue that's costing Ricciardo. He seems to have good straight line speed. It seems to be something else that's costing him, but Ricciardo drops to second place. Charles Leclerc leads the Vietnam Grand Prix for Audi. Ricciardo is in second. Reese now needs to find a way through in third place. We're now in 4th and hunting both McLaren cars down to try and snatch a podium in this Grand Prix. Sam's also in P5, but quite close behind behind, actually. So this could get very close now for the final few laps of this Grand Prix. Now in towards the last sector here. Reese now catching up to the back of Ricciardo. So it seems like he's lost something in terms of downforce. Although if it's a mechanical problem, I'm not quite sure what would not allow him to be so quick in the corners. But he's really struggling now. So we're going to go for it here. Launch an attack now down the inside of Reese. Catching him unawares there. I knew that I wouldn't have the performance to do it in a straight line. But we've got to do it in the last corner. We've done that. Now onto the pitch right here. Ricciardo's struggling for pace now. And we're just going to breeze past the sickening McLaren car. Round the outside into turn 1. Ricciardo puts up a fight here. But on the inside then into T2. We can hold him off. Reese now can have a little bit of fun trying to attack his own teammate here. We're now up into second place. Ricciardo drops to third. Reese now down in fourth place. Although by the looks of it, he should be able to get past Ricciardo quite quickly. Sam then is closing in on the background there. There he is. Reese now is going to open up the taps here. Ricciardo under pressure now from his own teammate here as they go in towards the chicane now, towards the roundabout. As you can see, Reese now on the outside, moves in towards the inside line for the second phase of the chicane. Ricciardo tries his best to hold on in there, but there's nothing he can do with a mechanical issue like that. Unfortunately, you're just going to be hampered, and you can see on exit, Ricciardo is left for dead, and Sam now is going to say thank you very much, McLaren, for sabotaging Daniel Ricciardo. I'm going to snatch this, and I'm going to breeze ahead, but of course, Ricciardo will try and give it everything he's got on this back straight to hold off against his rival in the championship, Sam. But it is to no avail. Sam covers the inside line. He's now up into fourth place, and he's now trying to hunt down Reese for third place. Let's see if he can get it, though. That's going to be the crucial thing, if he could try and find a way through here. But Ricciardo, unfortunately, is under more pressure now, because here comes Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes-Benz. Let's see if he can try and get past Daniel Ricciardo now, who they've both caught. But here comes George Russell now. Hamilton under pressure here from Russell instead now. Rather than trying to attack Ricciardo, he's going to have to defend against Russell, who goes around the outside of Lewis Hamilton. And again, we've seen it time and time again. That outside line is much better. And through goes Russell, and fair play, he's through. Hamilton now drops into and drops further back down the order. I don't know what position it is on the field, I'm not going to lie to you. And for George Russell, though, with having more straight line speed in the Audi, crucially, he's able to catch up to Ricciardo and get in that slipstream and get past him, which he's going to do right now here. But this is going to be an interesting spot, because we saw in the previous attempt, when Reese got past Ricciardo through here, that it cost Ricciardo a position against Sam. Let's see now if Hamilton can get that, and that's exactly what he's going to try and do now. Sam here is going to attack Ricciardo, but crucially, Daniel is in the slipstream of George Russell, and if Daniel's got anything left power unit-wise, he's going to try and disperse all of it and use that slipstream of George Russell to good effect. That's exactly what he's going to do. He stays in front now of George Russell. And speaking of my teammate, actually, who of course got compromised in the first round of stops here, he's actually making a nice fight back here. He's caught up to Lando Norris, and he's going to go for it here around the outside of Lando in towards the hairpin now. You can see here that we've got Ricciardo and Hamilton just up ahead here. Sainz now gets around the outside of Lando Norris, and he moves himself up the order. I think it's for 9th place, that is, but I could be wrong with that. I have no idea. But there he goes. And he is through there. So good overtake there for my teammate, who is fighting back. But for us, though, here now, we're trying to catch up to Leclerc. Lap 27 of the Grand Prix, getting very close to the back of the Audi's rear wing now. So we've got a lot of pace in this final stint. And I found that I had so much pace. Unfortunately, I just don't quite have the straight line speed that I need to really attack. And you can see that there are some portions of the circuit where I'm just much faster. And then there's other portions where I'm not. One of them is this chicane in towards the roundabout section. This is where I've got a lot of pace, which I want to use. And as you can see, as we break in towards the chicane, we're right on the back of Leclerc. We might just try something here, a little bit audacious, trying to stick it to the inside line. This is what we'll try and do, try and sneak our car in there, but Leclerc shuts the door very harshly, but very fairly, and that means now onto this back straight here. If we had DRS, I might be able to think about getting this move done, but I don't. So he's got rich mixture and overtake mode to use. I've got rich mixture and overtake to use. Granted, I have got the slipstream as well, but the Audi is just that much more powerful. Onto the last lap now of this Grand Prix. It's been an absolute cracker, and it's actually flown by thinking about it now, but you can see that we're just trying our best now to reserve the fuel and ERS that we've got to go for a run on Leclerc. You can see that we get so close through this section. We've got more traction that we can use. We'll try it again here on Leclerc, but we're just not close enough to really go for it. Unfortunately, that has compromised me on this back straight now. We'll try everything that we've got to get past Charles Leclerc, but you can see that the Audi driver is a little bit further ahead than what he was on the previous lap. So unfortunately for us, I don't think we can catch and pass Leclerc in this Grand Prix now. As you can see, we're trying everything, but we just don't have the speed to do it. In towards the hairpin now. Leclerc is still in front of us. We've actually got Reese quite close behind, so we've got to be careful of what he's up to behind. But crucially, we're just a bit far ahead for him. Sam's also caught up to us. So Reese and Sam showing a little bit of last lap fight as well in this. But as you can see now, going through in towards the last portions of this lap here now, no place to overtake Rams here. We actually damaged our front wing on the last lap here, which doesn't really help. But surprisingly, it took me 28 laps to damage my front wing, which was a little bit of a surprise there. But now, as you can see, I mean, the downforce has already been knackered by that. But around the last corner we go now. For the first time this season, Audi are going to win a race in Season 7. And for the first time in Audi colours, Charles Leclerc wins for Audi. He wins the Vietnam Grand Prix. And, I mean, in fairness, Leclerc, I think, started down in like P9, P10. So, in order for him to come and fight back up to win the Grand Prix, you have to give him the credit there as Charles Leclerc takes the race victory from ourselves. The gap was 1.2 seconds in the end. Of course, we damaged our front wing right at the final flag. So, obviously, that cost us a little bit of time. Reese finishes in third place, 1.9 seconds behind, with Sam finishing in fourth. He was 4.6 behind. George Russell also had a bad qualifying session, and he recovered to P5. So overall, Audi had great race pace today. Daniel Ricciardo, with his mechanical problems, dropped from first down to sixth, which he'll be gutted about, finishing 16 seconds off the pace. Hamilton, despite Ricciardo having an issue, wasn't able to get past the stricken McLaren. Sainz promotes himself up into 8th place. Lando Norris finishes in P9, and it was Pierre Gasly for Ford that managed to grab himself a point here today. Daniel Ricciardo did get the fastest lap of 1:27.972 to give himself an extra point in the championship. Looking at the second half of the table now, it is Sergio Perez that finished in P11 for Aston Martin, ahead of Sebastian Vettel the Mercedes, who had a poor race. Nick de Vries, P13 for Aston Martin. Then it's Nico Hulkenberg for Porsche. Noah James, 15th for Ford. Esteban Ocon, 16th for Renault. Verstappen and Mason Woods, 17th and 18th. And it's Pascal Wehrlein and Valtteri Bottas was the only man to DNF from the Grand Prix today. And that is it for the standings. Now looking at the actual driver's standing, should I say, Daniel Ricciardo leads the Formula 1 World Championship by 10 points over ourselves now. We've actually gone up to second in the championship. Our results this season have just been so consistent that we're now in a very brilliant place. 10 points behind Daniel Ricciardo, who's on 108 points. We're on 98 points. Sam is on 95 points. He does close the gap to Daniel Ricciardo in the championship, but crucially, we've just had more consistent races than Sam as of late. Charles Leclerc, with that race victory, now puts himself onto 91 points and back into contention in the championship. Reese on 86 points. The top 5 actually are separated by just 22 points, so it's looking like a 5-horse race between both McLarens, one Jaguar, one Audi and one Ferrari. Lando Norris is P6 in the championship on 61 points. George Russell is on 52 points in 7th for Audi. Lewis Hamilton is on 32 points ahead of Vettel in this teammate Mercedes with 28 points. Valtteri Bottas remains P10 in the championship with 17 points. The next event is going to be the Formula 1 Singapore Grand Prix. Looking then at the Constructors' Championship now, McLaren still ahead in the Constructors' Championship on 194 points, but Jaguar, I think they closed the gap ever so slightly. No, they didn't actually. No, McLaren actually pulled away from Jaguar in the Constructors' Championship. I lie, but Jaguar are on 156 points. Audi, though, have closed that gap. They're now on 143 points that are reeling in Jaguar quite quickly. As for us in the Ferrari, we're on 111 points. We've broken the 100-point barrier, and as we try and surge closer towards Audi and Jaguar. Mercedes are on 60 points. Renault are on 17 points. Red Bull, 14 points. Ford have got 10. Porsche have got 6 and Aston Martin have 2. So that is the race done and dusted. Let's go to the post-race notebook and get some reactions from some of the drivers and teams. Taking a look at the post-race notebook, and the headlines is that Charles Leclerc takes his first win for Audi after fighting back from a poor qualifying session to win the Vietnam Grand Prix ahead of Tom and Reese. Tom failed to beat the Audi driver after a close fight to the flag, which saw both of them have to overtake the stricken Daniel Ricciardo, while Tom hunted down Leclerc all the way to the end, with Reese not so far behind. Pierre Gasly was proud to get points, and he believes that Ford are genuinely moving forwards now in Formula 1 after what was a dreadful season last year. Pierre Gasly has now racked up more points than he had throughout the entirety of his career as a Ford driver in just the first 7 races of this season, and he feels like Ford are really taking big gains forward. Tom was left frustrated with the Ferrari PU after struggling to overtake at the Vietnam Grand Prix. We saw that overall Tom's overtaking was actually quite lackluster at the Vietnamese Grand Prix. At the opening stint during the dry weather conditions, all of his overtakes were done at the start before he was overtaken by Sam and Leclerc, and then he pitted. The only driver that Tom was able to easily overtake was Lewis Hamilton when they pitted for the intermediate compound tyres. From then on in, it was a big struggle. He failed to get to overtake Sam in the Jaguar car, and then failed to overtake Leclerc towards the end, with his overtakes on Ricciardo being quite simple because Ricciardo had an issue, and then on Reese, which he made a late move down the inside, which caught him out. So, something to be learning at is that Ferrari really need to do some more work on their PU, despite having an engine upgrade already in that car. And Sam was also left frustrated with Jaguar and was angry with his pit crew after both of his pit stops throughout this Grand Prix cost him positions. The eventual race winner, Charles Leclerc, got the jump on him in the first round of pit stops when they went from the dries to the wet compound tyre. Then, in the second round of stops, which went from another set of intermediate compound tyres, Sam lost out to Tom, costing him yet another position, and it's something that he is extremely angry about as he tries to fight in the Formula 1 World Championship, stating that these type of mistakes are what going to cost him the chance of winning another Formula 1 World Championship. Strong words from Sam. We'll see you guys next time, though, for the Singapore Grand Prix. Take care all. Peace.